Welcome, viewers. This is episode 60. We hit a mile mark right there of the ForensicWeek.com show. I'm your host, Tom Moriello, coming to you from Laurel, Maryland, CEO of ForensIQ Incorporated and professor at the University of Maryland Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice in College Park, Maryland. Tonight on ForensicWeek.com, we will expose the human side of cybercrime. Cybersecurity efforts often fail to address the underlying questions. Who is trying to get in and why? How do they respond to different configurations of the attack system? How will understanding these phenomena help us to better protect ourselves and our valuable online information? We have with us this evening Dr. David Maimon, assistant professor at our department, the Criminology and Criminal Justice Department at the University of Maryland, and a member of the faculty of the Maryland Cybersecurity Center. He, together with his colleagues at the University of Maryland, have been studying the behavior of hackers and victims alike, conducting research on how end users' online routines determine their vulnerability to cybercrime incidences, and to answer some of the fundamental questions surrounding criminal behavior. So stay right there, right where you are. Folks, you are watching ForensicWeek.com, a talk show that features real forensic science by real forensic scientists, educators, law enforcement, and legal professionals who find, collect, and examine forensic evidence in the performance of their duties. Broadcast live on your desktop and mobile devices every Thursday evening right here, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on www.forensicweek.com. Of the Hangout10.com live TV webcast network, which is a series of shows broadcast to you live using Google+, a social networking service. Forensic IQ Update Report is a segment of the show where my student interns from the University of Maryland keep you up on current issues, events, and training opportunities that are important to the forensic and criminal justice communities, posting articles and abstracts on the Forensic IQ website blog. Student producer and interns with us this evening are Forensic Sciences graduate student from the George Washington University, Washington, D.C., our producer, Laura Pachuki. Forensic Sciences graduate student co-producer Derek Wong will not be with us this evening because as we speak, he is graduating, receiving his Master's of Forensic Science degree from Stevenson University in Baltimore, Maryland. Our University of Maryland criminal justice majors and my Forensic IQ interns are Noel Andres, Alicia Terrell, and Walter Tates. Now, Walter Tate just got kicked out of the room that he was sitting in during the beginning of our show, so he's immediately driving over to his home to get onto his own computer, so we'll see him in a little while. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I will be the keynote speaker at the NCMS Industrial Security Professionals 50th Annual Training Seminar on June 18th at the Gaylord National Resort in Harbor Place in Maryland. My presentation, it's a keynote address. I got 30 minutes to talk, which is hard for me, but my presentation is called The Flipped Classroom, Turning Your Security Education Program Upside Down. You know, DoD companies, industrial security companies, are responsible to ensure that the people who have access to this country's most sensitive information do so in a secure manner. They are required to educate them and continually educate them to understand the threat and to understand their responsibility. So they are educators who have been doing it the same way we've been educating in the universities for many, many years. And as a lot of us know, we're changing that format, changing the way we think. We're using flipped classroom techniques and blended learning hybrid techniques. So it's time for them to know and understand a little bit about it. So I'll be talking about that on June 18th. Before I introduce our guest and begin this evening's discussion, let's hear from producer Laura Pachuki. Laura.
Thanks, Tom. Hey, everyone, and thank you for watching ForensicWeek.com. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future shows, please email us at forensicweek@gmail.com. If you're watching this show live and you have a question for our guest, you can use the comment box below, and we will bring that up and ask on air. If you like this episode, please click the subscribe button on YouTube. You can watch all archive shows 24/7 online at ForensicWeek.com. You can also find us on Facebook by searching ForensicWeek.com. Like and share our page. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you, Laura. Our guest this evening comes to us from College Park, Maryland. At least that's where he is this evening in his office, Dr. David Maimon. Dr. Maimon is the assistant professor, a colleague of mine at the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice at the University of Maryland. He's also a visiting assistant professor, Criminological Institute, Faculty of Law at the Hebrew University. He's a research investigator for the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism at the University of Maryland. If you're wondering what that noise is my computer is telling me that I'm low on memory, so I got to be careful. He received his PhD in 2009 in sociology at Ohio State University. Originally born and brought up and educated in Israel. Dr. Maimon's research interests most recently have been exploring how cyber attackers think like regular crooks, which is a title of one of his research items. He believes that criminological insights in the study of cybercrime are important since they may support the development of concrete security policies that consider not only the technical element of cybercrime, but also the human component. That, viewers, is what those who are responsible to investigate cybercrime need to understand, and that is exactly why we have invited Dr. Maimon to the show to share his knowledge and research insight with us. I mentioned to him before the show that he is the first criminologist that we've had on ForensicWeek.com, and that reminds me that when I got my undergraduate degree, Dr. Maimon, in criminology, I sat there saying, hey, I want to be a cop. I want to be an investigator. And all we're talking about is criminological theory, why people commit crime, why they want to commit crime. I don't understand, and this is me talking back then when I was young and foolish. I don't understand why it's important for me to know why they're committing the crime. I just need to know who they are so I can lock them up and put them, bring them before the judicial system. Now, all of a sudden, after years of being an investigator, I truly understand and recognize how important it is to understand the mind of the person who commits crime to better understand who they are and where I might find them. David, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you with us this evening, and I appreciate you taking the time out. I know we're at the end of the semester here, and it's a difficult time. We get 1,000 things to do and getting grades in, but I want to thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, Tom. I really appreciate the honor.
You know, I guess 6-8 months ago you came to me and you told me a little bit about the research you were doing, and if I knew anybody in the computer forensic community, and that's when I started learning a little bit about this whole idea of cyber criminology, I guess you could call it, and some of the research that you're doing. Tell us what got you to, you have a background in juvenile delinquency and other areas of criminology. What got you to focus on cybercrime?
Well, I mean, it was a process, I have to admit. 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, I wasn't really interested in cybercrime. When I graduated, my area of research was focused on neighborhood effects. I was interested in understanding the effect of residential communities on adolescent development and involvement in deviance and crime. But then when I joined our Department of Criminology here in the University of Maryland, Professor Gary Lafree contacted me and asked me to put together a white paper on the issue of cyber terrorism. Now here I am, this new assistant professor, and a guy like Gary Lafree is asking me to do something. You don't say no, right? So I immediately agreed, and I started going through the literature, the cyber terrorism and the cybercrime literature. I was able to find a lot of theoretical writing. There was some empirical literature on the issue of cybercrime, but other than that, the empirical literature was not very good, in my opinion. And I thought it'll be a good opportunity for me to, push the envelope in the area of cybercrime, just because there was no one else that was doing at the time the things we currently do. So,
why do you suppose that's the case?
What do you mean?
That there's not a lot of literature been done.
So there is some empirical literature on the issue of cybercrime. There is some empirical literature. Most of this empirical literature is driven by survey research, survey methodology. Unfortunately, the papers that are published around this issue are published in third and fourth and even fifth-tier journals, which do not really give the authors a good visibility, and in my opinion, do not do service to this area of cybercriminology. I think that the major reason why you don't see more research around the issue of cybercrime is that criminologists are simply intimidated by the network and the technical aspect of the network. We're familiar with surveys. We know how to work with survey. We love survey methodology. We also love experiments that we can conduct in the physical world. But everything that takes place over cyberspace is kind of strange for us. We do not really understand it. We do not really understand the technical component of cyberspace, and folks simply avoid stepping in and producing some interesting research. Because
we're all social scientists. We're not technical, and the same problem is with law enforcement. Law enforcement officers. I know over the years in my forensic course, every time I tried to introduce computer forensics into the curriculum of the course, I couldn't keep my students awake.
Yeah.
Their eyes would glass over, and they had, no matter how I brought guests in who are international experts in computer forensics. I said, look, you got to dumb it down. You got to say it in English. And those technical people have trouble dumbing down anything, and you just don't understand them, and it turns off, unfortunately, at least the law enforcement type. So that's a problem in that area too.
I think you're definitely right, and this is what I'm trying to do. Here in the university, I'm trying to dumb things up for the social scientists. I'm trying to explain and demonstrate that the daemon is not that bad, and that the technical terms could be very simple if you just put some effort and understanding. What the tools that the computer scientists are using are actually doing. So.
Tell us some things that you found in reference to, I know you've done some research on looking at hackers, what they do. What have you learned about these kinds of people? Are these people hardened criminals who, and this is one aspect of what they do, or are these people that would have never got involved in any criminal behavior, but because of their interest in IT and their opportunity to break things and get into systems that excites them, and they don't think of it as being criminal? What have you found?
So we have a long list of projects that we're involved in. We have projects where we are interested in finding some interesting information about the hackers. We have some projects where we're trying to generate some important knowledge about the victim. But it's really difficult for me to actually talk about one specific finding. I mean, I can talk about hacker, I can talk about the victim, whatever you have in mind. I'm more than happy to discuss.
Let's talk about the hacker first.
So, we have some really cool findings, I think. I mean, we collect data. We started collecting data about hackers and what they're doing during the system trespassing event 3 years ago. And the unique setting we have with the large American university that we work with and that allow us to deploy our tools, allow us to play with these attackers' mind. The tools we have allow us to, send these guys warnings, send these guys, cues, situational stimuli in the system, and then figure out how they respond to it. In the first paper we actually published using the honeypots, those really cool tools that we use, to figure out what the attackers are doing on the system. We tried to assess the effect of a warning banner on attackers' behavior on the system. To be more specific, what we try to do is we try to figure out whether a warning banner that we send to a hacker will make them drop connection with the system. And we also try to figure out whether this warning banner will shape the time that these guys stay on the system, on the attacked system. And the interesting...
excuse me, can you explain the warning banner? What does it say, and when do they see it?
So the warning banner is a generic warning banner that NIST, the National Institute of Standard and Technology, advocates, and that suggests that all governmental agencies will have on their computers. It's a standard warning banner that suggests that folks who are not allowed on the computer are not allowed to use the computer, and that if you're not allowed and you're passing, you're trespassing, you're subject to penalties by the criminal justice system. That's the warning that our hackers see once they enter our system. They see the warning banner the minute they brute force to our system. The minute they break into our system, the second they break into our system, we send them a warning banner saying that they're an unauthorized user and that they are subject to penalties. So that's the warning banner.
Okay.
And we try to figure out the effect of the warning banner on the attacker's behavior, and again, to be more specific, on the attacker decision to drop connection with the system, as well as the time these guys stay on the system. And what we find is, really interesting. We find that with respect to attackers' decision to immediately drop connection with the system, we find that they couldn't care less about the warning. However, they do care. I mean, the warning does have some effect on the time that these guys stays on the system. In other words, attackers who see a warning banner remain shorter periods of time on the system than attackers who does not see a warning banner. And the difference is quite big. If you're an attacker and you enter into my computer and you don't see a warning banner, on average you will stay on the system 10 minutes. If you see a warning banner, on the other hand, you will stay only 5 minutes. So that's a huge difference that we find in the first experiment we ran. We were able to replicate this finding because computer scientists are very skeptical with respect to the humans that drive computer attacks. We ran another experiment, with more honeypots, with other sort of system configurations that we sort of assigned to the honeypots, and we find a very similar pattern. And so, the important finding that we report in that paper was that a warning banner, a simple warning that you have on the computer, significantly reduced the time system trespasser will stay on your computer.
Okay, that's interesting. What percentage which totally ignored the system banner and didn't change their time? Was there a percentage that just ignored it completely?
Only 24%, drop connection immediately with the system.
Okay. What else did we learn about the hacker?
So that experiment essentially led me to believe that you have humans driving those system trespassing incidents. There's a common notion in the technical literature that most of the attacks are driven by technical tools, which is true. I mean, we find that the majority of the attempts to actually gain access to the system are performed by botnets, which are zombie computers that are programmed to try to get access to your computer. But once the zombie computer allowed access to the attacker, you have a human on your computer. And you can play with this human, and you, in a way, can try and mitigate the damage he causes to your computer.
Interesting. Interesting. Now,
and I think this is really unique, not only in the context of hacking research or system trespassing research. I think these findings and what we're doing is really interesting in the context of criminological research in general, because at the end of the day, what we have is some records about what an attacker is doing, what a criminal is doing during a criminal act, right? And that's really unique in the context of the criminological literature, because if you think about all those criminological empirical studies that we've read in the past, most of those studies try to predict the occurrence of a criminal event. What we are working on is what an attacker will do during a criminal event, right? So we have those really special tools that allow us to record everything these guys are doing on the computers, and since those tools could be configured in any way we want, we can simply play with their minds in a way. We can send them warning. We can fake like we have other users on the system. We can do whatever we want with the system and see how all those configurations and how all those situational stimuli we introduce change attackers' behavior during a criminal event.
Huh. So how, based on some of the information that you've collected and what you've learned, how do you think this information, if it was in the hands of law enforcement, how do you think that might help investigators to better understand when they're looking for these folks?
So it really depends. If you're talking about law officers, I'm not really sure. I think that the information we collect could be very relevant to folks who do security. Folks who are trying to protect our computers, folks who are trying to protect our networks. At the end of the day, what I'm trying to do in my research is test the effectiveness of policies that we currently use in order to protect policies that are designed to protect our computers and networks. I'm trying to figure out whether those policies are really effective or not. So the warning is a policy, as I mentioned earlier, that is promoted by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Folks, apply this policy everywhere, but no one really tests whether this policy is effective or not. And what we find is that the policy, is effective in reducing the time hackers stay on the system. It's not very effective in preventing the criminal act from happening. So I see a lot of value to my research and the things I'm doing for the security community. I see a lot of value for what we're doing for the criminological community. I think also investigators can sort of use the approaches we employ to in a way try to make a hacker stay on the computer and reveal more about himself. But that's it.
How much do you know about the hackers? Who are they? I mean, not the names, but are they? I assume they obviously they have IT skills, but are these people who are focused on monetary motives, or are they people who just want to see if they can get into systems? Are they criminals that if they're benefiting from their hacking, if they couldn't benefit, would they move on to another type monetary crime? What's your feelings on that?
So it really depends. I mean, if you're asking about the hackers that attack our computers, I'm pretty sure that these are not the very sophisticated hackers. I mean, we find many attacks that are originated in countries like China and Russia and Romania, but I'm pretty sure it's not the Chinese army that attacked my honeypots. So it really depends. I mean, you have all types of hackers out there, and that's why it's so difficult to actually come up with a hacker profile. Today, if you think about it, anyone can be a hacker. The tools are available for anyone to download free from the internet. My 8 years daughter could, launch a cyber attack if she really wants to, right? So it's really difficult. Sort of come up with a profile. With respect to the guys who attack us, I'm pretty sure that we have the majority of the hackers, so the majority of the hacker population. Those script kiddies, those who are experimenting with the computer, those who run those software that are available online, and they download them. They download those software freely to their computer. Those folks who experiment with computers. I'm pretty sure that we have maybe students who are attacking our computers from the United States and all over the world. But I'm not sure whether we have the sophisticated hackers, those who are interested in our secrets, the United States secrets. So our honeypots, are the computers that we use are target of opportunity at the end of the day. And so what attackers will need to do is they will need to scan the internet, they will need to find our computers, our target computers, launch brute force attacks. In other words, they will need to guess the correct passwords and username to those computers, gain access, and simply work with them. Importantly, I'm pretty sure that I have a representative sample of 80% of the hackers that are out there. Maybe, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe 75% of the hackers that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Importantly, I don't. At this point, I'm not. I really don't care who the hackers are. I don't care if the hacker is a 30 years old who sits in Minnesota and attacking me, or a 15 years old Chinese who sit in China. What I care is about the way they do their operation. What I care is, about the things I can do with my computers, with my network, in order to mitigate the damage these guys are causing to our computers. And I'm doing that by employing criminological and psychological and sociological models that the technical guys tend to simply ignore.
So are the technical guys listening to you and looking at your data to in adjusting based on what they're learning from you?
I think so. I think that in the past, well, it's still a challenge to convince the computer scientists that we know what we're doing and that our findings are valid. But I think that more and more we see computer scientists and network engineers buying into what we're trying to sell in a way. They acknowledge the fact that they have a human driving an attack. The humans are very important players that they need to take into consideration while trying to protect the network. I'm traveling a lot because of the popularity of the subject. I'm traveling a lot here in the States and also abroad. I'm giving talks in cybersecurity centers. I just 3 weeks ago I visited the cybersecurity center in Johns Hopkins University, and you see the computer scientists thrilled and excited about these findings. They do want to do something with it, which is a great change, I think, in the way they used to do things in the past.
You said you were interested in the policies. Do we have enough policies to protect ourselves?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
we have. So the National Institute of Standard and Technology, came up with a list of regulations. It's a very big book that includes many policies that governmental agencies should incorporate when defending the network. However, the problem with those policies is that no one really tested whether they're effective or not. So we have this enormous book of policies which could be effective or not in preventing cybercrime. And this is what I'm trying to do. In a way, I'm taking this book and I'm trying to figure out whether those policies are effective. Maybe some of the policies should not be there. We're good in creating policies. We were less good in testing whether they're effective.
When I hear you talking like that, I'm thinking about, I used to be the national director for the oversight for Operation Security, which is understanding what your sensitive information is, what's the threat, what vulnerabilities do you have, and you really need to understand your threat to really understand what policies you need to have and to what extent.
Right.
So I see that some of your information could be valuable in a threat assessment for an organization to recognize how significant the problem exists.
Right.
Who are these people, and what is their interest? What do they want? What is their intent, and what information are they really focused on, so they know how to protect it?
Yeah, well, with respect to motivation, we know that hackers has a list of motivation. Folks talk a lot about monetary gain. Folks talk a lot. Criminologists and scholars talk about revenge and the fact that hackers tend to hack because of ideological reasons. We have a bucket of motivations that are out there. You just need to pick one. Those motivations, though, need to be studied in the context of an organization. So on my computers, a hacker with a monetary, so hackers want to have some financial gain, will not have any, will not find any interest in, because my computers has nothing on it. However, hackers who would like to initiate, future DOS attacks, hackers who would like to use the computers in order to store their stuff. Hackers who would like to use our computers in order to initiate subsequent cyber attacks will find those computers really valuable, right? So there's a whole list of motivations out there. We know a lot about these motivations. The question is whether it's really whether it really advances us in the context of understanding, cybercrime and computer-focused crime, to be more specific. I don't think it does.
Yeah. I assume all cyber criminals are hackers, no matter what their intent was. Somebody who's identity theft or whatever, it requires hacking into a system to do the other criminal behavior. Correct?
Well, cybercrime is a very broad concept, and identify all cyber criminals as hackers, I think, will be a mistake. There are a couple of really interesting typologies out there that distinguish between different types of cybercrime. You can think about cybercrime like you think about crime. When you think about crime, it's really difficult to understand what exactly you have in mind, because we have all these types of crime out there, right? There's a huge difference between property and violence crime, right? Similarly, we have this huge difference between a hacker who is trespassing into a system and someone who is trying to steal your identity. There's a huge difference between a hacker who is interested in web deface, the university website, and someone who is simply a cyberbully. And so it's really, what I'm saying, it's really difficult to sort of come up with a one profile of a cyber criminal.
Before we take a break, let me just ask you, what were these people doing before the internet? In other words, before we had the internet and computers as we have them today, what were these people who are committing these cyber crimes? What were they involved in? Were they not involved in any criminal behavior, or were they involved in different criminal behavior? In your opinion,
it's a great question. Unfortunately, we don't have empirical research on that. But my response for that will be the following. So if you ask me if my brother, who every now and then downloads songs illegally to his computer, will be able to commit a property crime in the physical world, I would have told you that he will never do that. Right? However, if you ask me if a gang member who sells drugs over the internet would have done that even if the internet wasn't exist, the answer will be yes. Right, so it's really difficult to answer this question, again, because of the fact you have so many types of cyber criminals out there. Right? You do have the hackers, but at the same time you have those 13-year-olds who use Facebook to bully their friends. You have those hackers who launch DOS attacks against organizations out of ideological reason or other reasons. But at the same time, you have those hackers who are trying to steal your identity.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned downloading songs or software, etc. That's a major problem when we're evaluating people for clearances, etc. They're now asking, everyday people who are good law-abiding citizens, if you were to ask them, excuse me, how many illegally downloaded songs do you have on your iPad or iPod? The typical answer will be 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. And then if you ask them, because we have asked them in my previous job, did you know it was illegal when you did it? They'll say, yeah. Why are you asking? In no way in their mindset do they believe it to be a crime. Deep down they know it's wrong. It's kind of like making a copy of a movie that has the FBI logo at the beginning saying "Do not duplicate." Maybe we feel less concerned if we only duplicate some of it, in reference to the time factor that you saw as a problem.
Right.
Like, for example, I got to be honest with you. I've duplicated portions of movies, and I've used them in my briefings. Mm-hmm. Now, the copyright law says that you can use a certain amount of time, and you don't violate the copyright laws, which is kind of interesting. Now, The problem is some government lawyers say it's 10 seconds that you can use. Other government lawyers reading the same law says it's 5 minutes worth. So what is it? Crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, we are listening to Dr. David Maimon from the University of Maryland Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice. The topic is cybercrime, looking at the human aspects and the human behavior aspects of cybercrime. We're going to give Dr. Maimon a little break right now and ask our interns from the University of Maryland to talk to us a little bit about their Forensic IQ update report. We'll start with you, Alicia.
Okay, the first blog I'm going to talk about is about a new technology, well, a different technology that's used to detect compromised serial numbers on firearms. This study was released by the National Institute of Justice about a technology called magneto-optical sensor technology, known as MO sensor technology. The two most ways for restoring serial numbers is the MPI and the chemical etching technologies. In the study, they compare them to the MO sensor technology. And when they're compared, they found that the MO technology was viable, reliable, and it's better in sensitivity, specificity, accuracy, and precision. But a drawback with the technology is that it can only be used on flat surfaces, and it's far more expensive than the other two technologies. But it can be a positive because it can be used as maybe a fallback plan when the other two technologies don't work.
And the other technologies are destructive. I mean, you're destroying the service, where this new one is non-destructive. Is that correct?
It's not destructive at all, so it can be done multiple times.
Okay, so if anybody's interested in looking more about that area, just go on to Forensic IQ Inc. And look at our blog and learn more about that article, and go right to the article. Alicia has the abstract for you. What else do you have?
The other one I have is a free online course held by RTI International. It will be on the four elements of trajectory for shooting reconstruction. It will be on May 22nd, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be approximately 70 minutes, and it will discuss how the path of a bullet hole has four main elements that require measurement, estimation, or other determinations where possible, and it will go into detail on these four elements independently.
Very good. This RTI free training is, I believe, government funded, and those of you in law enforcement are criminal justice majors studying this area for firearms identification, and this would be a great opportunity to get some special training in that area. Thank you very much, Alicia. Appreciate it.
Problem.
Noel, what do you got?
Well, hey everyone. I hope our audience is doing fine. I want to first start off by saying that ForensicColleges.com has named the Forensic Chemistry program at the University of Mississippi one of the finest in the nation. This program is the only one in the state, is among 3 forensic chemistry programs in the South, and is one of 6 which is nationally accredited by the Forensic Science Communications Program Accreditation Commission, which is administered by the American Academy of Forensic Science. The program at the University of Mississippi contains a demanding science-based curriculum that prepares graduates for versatile careers in forensic laboratories. One thing I wanted to mention was that although the university offers only a Bachelor's of Science in forensic chemistry, a major difference that sets this program aside from all the others is that the students in the program are enrolled in a summer internship with the local criminal laboratory. And because of this hands-on experience, more than 70% of graduates find employment upon graduation, many of them working in local or federal crime labs.
Very good, and congratulations to the University of Mississippi. I do mention, though, for those students who are interested and love chemistry, etc., there are very few, as Noel just said, programs in forensic chemistry. So those of you who are saying, hey, I really like chemistry, and I really like to be a forensic chemist, don't forget, you don't need to find and travel to the other side of the country to find that one school, that small group of schools that may have a forensic chemistry program. The key is in talking to people who run crime labs, they're looking for good chemists, So looking for a university with a good, strong chemistry department is what you need to do. So, that's not taking anything away from the University of Mississippi. There's just not enough of those kind of programs around the country, and I don't want students to get the wrong impression. What else do you have?
Okay, well, earlier this year, Mark Burry, who's a crime analyst at the Santa Clara County Lab, he allegedly used the wrong chemical to conduct a preliminary methamphetamine test on blood samples of 2,500 arrestees. In January, Burry grabbed the wrong solution off of a shelf and loaded a machine with the more sensitive compound. Luckily, another crime analyst discovered the mistake in March, and after retesting, only 7 tests had shown up as a false positive. Well, fortunately, no one is in custody because of a mistaken test, and due to this incident, the lab is taking extra precautions to better label the chemicals and is conducting a review of the procedures in the lab. So because of his mistake, Mark Burry is no longer assigned to drug testing in the crime lab.
But let me ask you, who did the investigation? Did they do their own investigation?
Yes, they did their own investigation.
Okay, so we can take that with a grain of salt then. Are they alleging they tested all 2,500 or whatever to make sure they didn't make a mistake?
Yeah, they're alleging that they tested all 2,500 and only 7 turned out positive, a false positive. And if the audience is interested in learning a little bit more about the article and what the district attorney Jess Rawson had to say about the case, they can visit the article online.
Very good. Okay, what else you got?
Well, that was my 2.
Oh, that was both of them. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, appreciate it very much. And by the way, I understand you had an elementary school group at the mock crime scene facility. Was it yesterday?
Yes, it was yesterday. Cesar Chavez Elementary School. It's located here. I believe it's Hyattsville, Maryland. My cousin, who's a teacher there, I believe 2nd grade teacher, she stopped by the campus and asked if they could see the crime lab, and I showed them the mock crime scene facility outside and inside, and they took pictures. So if Rebecca Johnson,
how old were these kids?
They were in 2nd through 6th grade. It was a field trip of about 100 students. So they all went to the crime lab, and they were just fascinated about the amount of detail that each crime scene had.
And they didn't mind the blood and all that stuff. The teachers didn't have any problem with that with the students?
No, the teachers were fine. One of the students, I remember asking me of the girl that was in the crime scene. She was like, "Was this girl raped and then killed?" And they were like asking me all these things, and they're pretty much following along. You know, I'm pretty sure they watched like CSI or other television shows.
Don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. You told them not to watch it anymore, right?
Yeah, I told them not to watch it. I told them it's nonsense.
Okay. Very good. Well, that's good. I'm glad you did. I know you called me yesterday to see if it was okay. Of course, I was in the middle of watching looking at my new grandson when. No, actually, he hadn't been born yet. But I'm glad you did that. Appreciate that. It's always good to get our message out. Walter, what do you got?
All right. First article I want to talk about is. There is an online webinar course that is available to the public for use. It's being offered through RTI International, and it's free. It's on demand, so you can go to it whenever you want. It's titled Fluorescence of Blood Impressions with Acid Yellow, and basically it's a 90-minute webinar that shows you step-by-step with instructions how to use acid yellow to get prints off of blood stains. And you can also find more online webinars through the National Institute of Justice website, which is where this was funneled through, but the actual institute that's doing it is the RTI International.
Very good. You know, that's the second one, RTI one we talked about this evening, and there are certainly a lot of them. And I got to tell our viewers, I can't tell you how well they're being received, but I do feel that I need to do that. I want to make sure that they're presenting quality training, because we're sending people a lot of the time over there. So we'll have to see if there's any way we can get any survey reports on seeing the program. So right. What else you got?
The second one is, there are numerous pieces of equipment out there that are used to diagram crime scenes, but sometimes the best way to do it is by hand. So the next article is a pretty lengthy article, but it goes into a lot of detail about different methods that you can use to sketch a crime scene by hand, the best ways to do it, different techniques. They said there are 4 basic ones. They are the rectangular, baseline, triangulation, and azimuth. I think that's how it's pronounced. And
Okay.
the article goes into a lot of depth about these different techniques, how to use them properly, and especially measurements.
Well, you know,
techniques.
it's funny, you know, sometimes we take a big circle, come back to where we started. You know, when you start using software and various software programs to create something like a sketch, you got to be really careful because, you know, if it's not exactly what you saw in the software does something different, the defense is going to attack you. So when you're doing it by hand and using templates and everything else, sometimes that might be a better way to go. Because I know on several cases I've looked at, I remember one. It was a triple murder. Triple murder, yeah, 2 children and a mother, all 3 killed by an ex-wife. Anyways, I looked at the federal AT&F sketch. I looked at the state police from the state that will remain nameless sketch, and then the local police. They all did sketches of the same crime scene. None of them matched. None of the measurements of the house matched. And that just gives the defense all kinds of reason to question you know, the professionalism of the organization. And before you know it, they're not even talking about sketches. They're talking about the people who made the sketches. So that's a good article for people to look at. Thank you. And by the way, for those of you listening, Walter Tate was a student of Dr. Maimon's CCJS 418. Is that correct? Is that the right number?
I actually think he took 454 with me.
Yeah,
454.
I pride myself by knowing all my students by names and faces. So
Don't do that, because I'm bad at names. I know faces, but names, as my students know, they're all laughing now. I'm bad with
both names and faces.
Good. Well, then you're pretty lucky. So I want to talk to you about I want you to talk a little bit about your 418 cybercrime class. Tell us what you're teaching our future professionals. Tell us a little bit about the course, in what direction it's going.
I really love this class. I mean, I designed it as a seminar. You know, we have 2 parts for the semester. During the first part, we dive into the more technical aspects of cybercrime. We try to understand how the computer works. We try to understand how the internet works. So I'm trying to dumbify, you know, I'm trying to sort of explain how those, you know, how the computer and the internet really works in a layperson language. We then dive into the issue of cybercrime. We try to understand the different types of cybercrime we have in our world. We talk about the hacker. We talk about the victim. We talk about, you know, our problem with respect to understanding who the victims are. Our problem with respect to understanding how much cybercrime we have in our world. Unfortunately, we don't have a single portal that collect information about this. So, you know, unfortunately, we don't know how much cybercrime we have in our world. We talk about these issues. We talk about the IT managers. You know, we have a really cool talk that Jerry, the IT manager here in the University of Maryland, is giving. You know, this semester the talk was really cool because Jerry talked a lot about the data breach and what happened. So that's what we're doing in the first half of the semester. In the second half of the semester, what I'm trying to do with the students is apply criminological theories and conduct scientific research, or sort of design scientific research in the context of cyberspace. I'm trying to avoid survey research, and I encourage my students to collect data directly from the internet using technical tools like honeypots, tools like you know, Wireshark, which is a software that allows you to you know, sniff computer networks and tell what people are doing on their computer. You know, I encourage my students to use data from intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system. and design their own research. Again, in my opinion, we do not have enough scientific research, rigorous scientific research on the issue of cybercrime. And for me, one of the important goals of this class is to teach students how to conduct research in the context of cyberspace and cybercrime in particular.
I don't know if you noticed while you were talking, my Google Plus crashed, and I just popped up again. So I'm sure you answered.
Attacking your computer.
Ah, that could be, because that particular problem never happened before. But I'm sure that you answered my question eloquently.
I hope I did.
Yeah. So let me ask you, all right, and this is, I always ask all my guests. We get students who are trying to decide what they want to do when they grow up. In fact, there's a couple of them right below you in those thumbnails, probably. Okay. If somebody's interested in this subject matter, cybercrime, either as a researcher or as a criminal justice professional, in either becoming a lawyer or whatever, where should they start? What do you think? What should they major in? What do the people that you're dealing with that you think have a good, strong understanding of the issues? What fields are they coming from? Because I know your partner is an engineer.
Yeah, I think it's important to have background in computer science or network engineering. I think it's very important. The students, when we first began the class, I had students from all over campus sitting in my class. I had computer scientists and engineers and criminology students. I think that the students really enjoyed the class, but I think the computer science students found the class not too technical, so they simply left it. Well, I keep asking the same question you just asked me. The IT managers here in campus. I keep asking this question. Some of the police investigator I'm familiar with, and that work around the issue of cybercrime. No one has a good answer. In my opinion, in order to sort of conduct scientific research in the context of cybercrime, you need to have strong background in the social sciences. I sat in a couple of really interesting conferences during the last 3 years in which computer scientists gave talks about cybercrime-related issue and the type of research that they conducted. Unfortunately, computer scientists are not, they're great in sort of designing computer and writing software and writing programs and so on, but they're not very good in conducting scientific research. So I definitely think that social scientists, especially folks who come from the criminology department or sociology or psychology department, has a huge advantage over students with computer science background if they do want to do sort of research on cyberspace. However, if you're interested in protecting a network, defending a network, applying tools, then you definitely need to be more technical. So hopefully that answered your question.
Very good. This is similar to the forensic science community. When the Miranda rights were established, even though we had those rights for 200 years, but when we had to start telling people they had the right to remain silent, all of a sudden there was this focus not on testimony, not trying to get confessions from people, but there was a new emphasis on physical evidence. And they said, hey, we're going to have to really understand physical evidence at the crime scene more than we ever did before. And that's when forensic science started growing significantly. But as it grew, we had these law enforcement officers, these social scientists, because if they went to school, they went into a criminal justice program that was social science. A lot of people majored in criminal justice because they didn't like science or didn't have a good mindset for it. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden you got all these scientists who can really take a piece of physical evidence and dissect it and give you all some great information, but the police officers whose job it was to find it and bring it to them didn't know what to find and look for.
Right.
And so that was the problem at the beginning. So now I think you're identifying the same kind of problem. Mm-hmm. We've got this technical crime, that requires technical knowledge to understand and appreciate, that is investigated many times by very untechnical social science types.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow there has to be a cross-contamination or a cross-education of the two, and find some common ground in the middle so they can help each other.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. That's exactly what we're trying to do here in the Department of Criminology. We're trying to bring together, social sciences with computer sciences, with network engineering, work together on this issue, and simply push the envelope, generate a better understanding about, how hackers, how cyber criminals are doing things, how victims behave in cyberspace, in order to generate a more secure and safe cyber environment for everyone.
It'd be interesting, and we only got a couple of minutes. We didn't really talk about the victim much, but do victims tend to ignore the fact that they're being victimized, like it's not really happening, because they really don't understand it? Is that a fair assessment?
It is a fair assessment. Victims simply are unaware of the things that goes on their computer. Many people do not really understand how they expose themselves, their computers, the network to attacks, to cyber attacks. On their private computers or the computer networks they're part of. The reason for that is that we can't really tell. I mean, it's really difficult to tell once you fell victim to cybercrime. I mean, as far as I understand it, Tom, you really don't know whether it's my students actually who attacked you right now, or if it's a technical problem that you faced with the connection, right? A very similar situation, is experienced by many other computer users around the globe. It's really difficult to tell whether you have a malicious software on the computer, even if you have an antivirus. It's really difficult to tell whether you have someone on your computer, even if you're a very talented computer scientist. And so victims tend to expose themselves, to any type of cybercrime. We have some really interesting findings on that in the context of, one American university where we conducted some interesting research. What we find is that victims' online routine activities, pretty much determine when the network will experience attacks on it. In other words, we find that most attacks on a university network are more likely to occur between 9 to 5, because most computer users are actually using the network during that time. We also find that's that finding was really interesting in the context of the scientific literature on cybercrime. We find that the social composition of the computer network determine the origin of computer attacks against the computer network. Mm-hmm. In other words, we focused in our research on the social composition of the network and the country of origin of computer users, computer network users. And as you guys know, a university is a very diverse computer network. You have people coming using the network from all over the world. And what we did was we took all this information and we correlated it, generated a regression analysis. We correlated all this information with information on attacks that large American university experienced between the years 2007 to 2009, for each of those years separately. And what we find is that increasing the number of foreign faculty, students, and staff that arrive from specific countries increase the network probability to experience attacks from those countries by 50% in average. So that's...
Was anybody surprised at that?
I don't think anyone was surprised about that, but no one really talked about it, right? Yeah. And the reason why that happens is that the expectation or so the assumption we have or we had when we conducted the research was that foreign students, faculty, and staff usually what they do, every morning when they come to campus is they simply check what's going on in their home country. So I'm Israeli. Every morning I come here to campus. I have to get some updates with respect to what's going on with my favorite soccer team. I need to sort of send emails to one of my friends in Israel. I need to communicate with my brother, and once I do that, I exposed the network to attacks from Israel. Right.
Okay. I'm looking at the time, David. I'm sorry, but the 60 minutes is up. I want to thank you very much. I appreciate the excitement that you have on what you're doing, and I appreciate that you're sharing that with our undergraduate students because they need to hear your message and to learn you know, the kinds of things that you're teaching them. So thank you very much. I know you have another area of expertise in juvenile delinquency, and we talked before the show about maybe doing another show in the area of juvenile delinquency and maybe getting a prosecutor, some law enforcement juvenile officers, maybe a juvenile probation folks too. That would be kind of cool too, to talk about that whole area. So David, I know you're still in the office. It's 8 o'clock in the evening, and I appreciate that because you got to ride your way up in Baltimore now, so it's going to take. You're going to drive right by my house, so I'll wave to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you. Stay right there for a moment. I do want to let everybody know next week, May 15th, we are going to do a show on campus law enforcement to talk about the issues that are going on in reference to shootings on campus and how campus law enforcement has changed or may have changed or needed to change their focus and how they provide services and protection on campuses. We will have several guests from different universities. Which ones I don't know yet because there's a national campus law enforcement organization that is talking about which ones are going to be able to be on the show. So we're looking forward to that. Captain Bob Muick from University of Maryland Police Department will be on. He's a former student of mine, and he's been on the show before. And he's a great friend of mine and a great friend of the shows and the department. So in fact, he's the one helping me get a few guests. So that'll be next week. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that you've been listening to ForensicWeek.com. And I hope this show has been valuable to you. Remember that as soon as we're done, this show is up and will be archived on www.ForensicWeek.com. I appreciate you viewing each week. Our view numbers are getting larger and larger, and we appreciate that. So I'd like to thank our guests. I'd like to thank our students who make this show what it is. See you next week. Thank you.